The Mask wasn't just a movie based on a comic book. Zoot Suit Yellow had a real-life meltdown. A movie that made Tex Avery famous. Jim Carrey's face went crazy, and Looney Tunes felt like it was in danger. But even though it seemed crazy, it was barely put together. That it was based on a horror comic almost got it thrown out. Cameron Diaz got the part only 7 days before filming began. It also led to a line of cartoons and toys for kids. Here are 20 strange things about The Mask. Along with all the chaos, there was a sequel contest that offered a role but fell through when Carrey said no. Close your eyes, you can't play this one soft. Number 1, it didn't begin with laughter. At first, there was blood, bullets, and a mask that made people kill. Mask books weren't made for kids or even teens in the beginning. It was a very violent and scary story from Dark Horse. Anyone who wore the mask turned into an uncontrollable psychopath. That tone was used in early drafts of the movie. In one version, there were zombie teens and a scary death scene straight out of Evil Dead. But when Chuck Russell became the director, he saw something else. Not just chaos, but madness. He got rid of the slasher part and started over with the story as a love letter to Tex Avery cartoons. They were no longer there. Eyes popped out of heads and tongues rolled across the floor as they came in. A shady character with a green face who spins through real life like a live Looney Tunes show. It wasn't just a change in tone. Moving from midnight horror to Saturday morning fever dream was a full-on genre switch. It worked in some way. Are you on the list? No, but I think Franklin Grant and Jackson are my friends. Changes in Hollywood. The second is Hollywood production hell. The Mask didn't even look at it. Mike Werb was a writer who was known for having strange ideas. Werb ran as soon as Chuck Russell gave him the reins. He wrote the whole script for Mask in just 6 weeks, combining weird logic, cartoon chaos, and a cheesy love story. The scary comic became something strange, funny, and totally unexpected thanks to his writing. Even stranger, New Line said yes to Carrey before she was popular. They liked the tone. They saw the money plan. They then fired the gun. Only 2 months after the story was turned in. This town often has comedies that don't get made for years. The Mask moved at the speed of light. Because strangest thoughts don't always make it, they sometimes soar to the top. Number 3, he wasn't a movie star. Not yet. He didn't need a hit, though, to know what was going to happen. The studio was full of names, safe bets, and known faces while The Mask was being cast. Russell had seen early video of Ace Ventura, though, so that was enough for him. He said that Carrey moved during real life like a cartoon, that his body could break the rules of physics and not show any changes, that the story didn't need to be changed. It had to have Jim Carrey. They rolled the dice. He was cast before Ace Ventura even came out. When the world finally caught on, they didn't just find a growing star. Before anyone knew who he was, they found someone who was meant to wear the mask. Do you remember anything about the noise last night? Having trouble? A few shots of 20-pound buckshot 5T were fired from your door. That was put in my floor right. He then jumped out the window. Do you agree? Not possible. There is no way those pajamas can fit. This signed the deal just in time for it to happen. For the 4th time, he signed the file just in time, because the price would have been very different if Jim Carrey had waited a few more weeks. He was still just the in living color guy when the Mask locked him in. He was a TV sketch comedian known for his rubber limbs and fire marshal bits. He got a lot of attention, but no big hits. So, New Line gave him $450,000, which is a good amount of money for a growing star, but not quite star money. After that, everything changed. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, exploded in theaters 2 weeks after Carrey signed, and so did her worth. He became the most sought-after comedy star in Hollywood almost overnight. By late that same year, when Dumb and Dumber came out, he was making $7 million a movie. New Line wasn't able to try again. They couldn't get out. So, when The Mask came out in theaters during the Ace Ventura craze, it looked like a great choice to cast her. In reality, though, they hit gold just before the market went through the roof. $450K for a performance that made the movie famous and Carrey a star all over the world. 5th, she didn't have any training credits, time, or credits for credits. Cameron Diaz was a model at the audition for The Mask. She was 21 years old and had never been in a starring role before. All she had was a headshot, a smile, and some luck. The studio didn't believe it. They needed to let someone know. Anna Nicole Smith, a rising star who already had a Playboy cover to her name, was their first pick. But director Chuck Russell had a feeling it was right. One thing about Diaz stood out to him. Not just beauty, but also being there. He decided to take a chance. It only took 7 days for her to be cast. Not enough time to train or get ready. They put her right into one of the biggest comedic parts of the year, opposite a drunk and crazy Jim Carrey at the height of his antics. She held her own in some way. The red dress, slow motion walk, and hot jazz club weren't just for the first time. It was the birth of a star. From no one at all to an instant star in just one take. That if you kiss me, my dear, I'll show you my croissant. I'll put my letter in your nasty. Music, she's so cute. I love it. Number 6, it wasn't in the script. Talked. It wasn't in the script. Stop me, please. I'm sorry. I picked the wrong pocket. He used the original script as a guide, but he made up the jokes, the rhythms, and the strange turns of events. The scenes got longer, louder, and weird because of him. That person was Stanley Ipkiss, and that mask was something that no one had ever seen before. The group lost their cool. People behind the camera couldn't hold back their laughter during every take, so they had to do them all over again. That wasn't confusion. It was power. There was nothing the director had to say after Carrey took over the scene. Just keep rolling. Number 7. He wore polyester before he put on the mask. Even though he was only 16, Jim Carrey did something that most teens wouldn't do. He dropped out of school to try stand-up comedy. He didn't have fame or money, but he did have a little ability and parents who believed in him no matter what. His father helped him write his first routines. He used to be a singer and is now an accountant. His mom, as a costume, she made him a bright yellow suit with long tails out of cheap polyester and blind hope. It wasn't in style. It was faith. Carrey walked out on stage that first night at the comedy club in the bright yellow outfit. It went horribly wrong, with nerves shaking, jokes stuck in people's throats, and hearts wide open. It's cold enough to make you question every dream you've ever had. The steps are empty. That night, though, wasn't the end. It was the start. That silly and loud yellow suit became a part of his DNA. It made him think about what he was doing and who he was. Years later, when the people who made the mask asked Carrey what Stanley Ipkiss should wear, she didn't think twice. The look wasn't his idea. He could remember it. The suit in the movie wasn't made by a company. It was an honor for the kid who bombed in Toronto, to the parents who still believed, and to the suit that said, "Go big or go home." The people who watched the VFX team laughed this time. There was a plan by the visual effects team for number 8. They knew every joke, eye roll, and head spin until they saw Jim Carrey move. He could make his mouth wider than the software, bend his back like a spring, and raise his eyes higher than any animator could do. The ILM team knew right away that they didn't need to improve him. They had to keep up with him. In an instant, whole scenes were changed so that they used less effects and more drive. This led to $1 million savings. And a movie that looked more real than any digital fake could, because the human figure that was already on set was better than any CGI. That food is very hot. The teeth were number 9, and the green face was just the beginning. Latex, glue, and color were put on Jim Carrey's face by artists every day for 4 hours. The hardest part was in his mouth, though. They weren't made for talking because their teeth were too big, like those big cartoon chompers. They were only meant to be used for quiet laughs and as a visual joke. But Carrey had something else in mind. He began to work out with them on. At first, he messed up every word, not able to say anything clearly. But he kept trying, stretching out sounds, bending his voice, and shaping words to fit the plastic. Somehow it worked. He wasn't just mumbling. They were part of the show because he made them. The lisp, the push, and that crazy, crooked smile. All of them were choices. Keep the prop in and make it sing. In that way, he turned a cheap joke into an identity for the crew. Number 10. It's not always the plot that causes the most trouble. Behind the camera, the group is going crazy. An over-the-top mask moment on car caused the set to keep falling apart with laughs. Boom. Operators lost their mics. Shots are lost when the camera shakes. During a take, even the director got up and left. It wasn't a plot to harm. I had to stay alive. No one could keep it together long enough to finish the scene. It took 25 takes to film just one joke. Because even the pros fell apart when Jim Carrey went full-on cartoon that I'm going to show you. Mr. Expert, just relax and enjoy the ride. Mr. Rip, you don't scare me. Feel free to go ahead. I get it. You said Loki was a god of the night, that it could only work at night. Number 11. What if you loved your next job even more after working on the biggest movie of all time? That's what took place at ILM, the famous effects studio that made Jurassic Park. They started with dinosaurs and then moved on to a crazy person in a yellow suit with a green face. And for many of them, it was pure happiness. There are no rules or science, just chaos. The Tex Avery logic and the Looney Tunes madness. They weren't making a T-Rex chase a Jeep move. They were popping hearts out of chests, stretching eyes, and making Jim Carrey look like a storm of rubber and light. At least one artist said it was true. Jurassic Park broke new ground. But The Mask was the most fun I've ever had because they weren't trying to be realistic. They were looking for ways to laugh. Number 12. Fire Station 23 is easy to miss in all the noise and cartoons. Stanley's auto shop is a mess, but it has a dark past, which is the shop where he fixes cars. It's not just any set. This is Fire Station number 23, the same famous Los Angeles site that was used for the first Ghostbusters movie. The curved brickwork, the old-school doors, and the bones of the movie theater were already there. Even though The Mask didn't fill it with proton packs or slime, strange things still came to life there. One movie showed ghosts, and the other showed a picture that came to life. It's the same building and movie magic, but the magical is different. Number maximum 13. Max, the Jack Russell Terrier, didn't do what he was told. He went after cookies. Stan's dog Milo wasn't a show dog raised in Hollywood. To be fair, he was smart, but he was also very hungry. Every tilt of the head, jump, and bite of the mask moment was driven by Fig Newtons. The crew always had a lot of them on hand. They put treats all over the set, and Max did tricks that most animals couldn't fake. They did everything from complicated action routine to wearing the mask in the end. And when he jumped into Car's arms on cue, it wasn't CGI, it was just Fig Newton's drive. He wasn't just a helper. He became one of the most loved dogs in movies in the 1990s. He earned every bite. Number 14. That Cuban Pete Pete number with the hips, the maracas, and the guards who are frozen with fear. Even though it looked like a mess, Jim Carrey made it look easy. The people in the room didn't know that he couldn't hear anything. The club set was very loud. There were screaming extras, bright lights, and stage hands calling out cues. There was no sound, music, or gameplay. Carrey did the whole routine without speaking. He practiced it over and over until he could feel every step. Not a single shot was hit by chance. When they finally dropped the track in post, it was perfectly timed since Carrey didn't have to hear it. He set the beat. 15. Break for a wild dance. It was a surprise to everyone. It was meant to be funny that there was a break with a lot of dancing and maracas. The police are being distracted by a weirdo with a fake face. But it stuck with me. The hips, the horns, and the beat. People didn't just laugh. They got up and moved. Within a few months, clubs were packed with old-school swing bands. Beginner Lindy Hop classes have been added to dance schools. Even clothes from the past are back in style. It wasn't supposed to happen. For The Mask to make fun of old shows was not all it did. They came back louder, stranger, and swinging for real. Ace Ventura 16. There were more than just bad reviews of Ace Ventura when it came out in theaters. They made fun of it. People said Jim Carrey was childish, annoying, and too much. The Mask then showed up. Same face, same mess. But this time, more people looked. They saw that there was order behind the chaos, in his timing, his physical control, and the way he turned slapstick into something magnetic. And the tone changed slowly. People didn't just laugh at him. He got attention from the Golden Globes. Not a nomination. Not yet. But it was clear what the message was. It wasn't just a clown with a fake face. This man was an actor. He could change the way his body, words, and energy felt. And The Mask showed that crazy things could be art. 17. Many people didn't think it would be a big hit. Not the company, not the press, and not even the studio. Jim Carrey was still a risk that hadn't been proven. A Joker card with a fake face and a sketch show every Sunday. Cameron Diaz had never been in a movie before. The movie was a crazy Tex Avery fever dream based on a violent independent comic that no one had heard of. They only got $18 million from New Line. There's no safety net, no star, and no promises. But then something clicked. People didn't just show up, that a lot of them showed up. A lot of people heard about it. A huge $351 million was made around the world by The Mask by the end of its run. That wasn't just making money. That's when things changed. In an instant, Jim Carrey became a bankable A-list star. Cameron Diaz became the next big thing in Hollywood. Not long ago, New Line was a small company known for making scary movies. They had just released one of the most popular comic book movies of the 1990s. Before Marvel movies took over the box office, The Mask showed that weird could win. It only took a green face, a zoot suit, and a dance move that no one saw coming. Ipus, where were you last night? Mostly here. What do you know about this type of mask? Don't make fun of my brains. Ipkiss.2 Stupid people can't have pants like these. That set of clothes was stolen. Someone took your underwear. That it was never meant for kids. 18. It was never meant for kids. The first Mask comics were violent, bloody, and strange, and the early story was almost as dark. The executives thought it would get an AR rating. They were ready for chaos and blood. However, Chuck Russell had a different view. He saw Tex Avery instead of Tales from the Crypt. He preferred comedy to blood and gore, and he liked color to blood. In order to make it last, he fought, not to tame it. A tone that teens could hear. What it said? Fun, not forbidden. It did work. The Mask was able to reach enough people with PG-13. Not clean, just smart, and just weird enough to get past the monitors. With a big green grin. When it first came out in theaters number 19. It's not for kids. But try telling the merchandise machine that. The Mask looked strange. It was loud and a little off, but it hit a deep spot in the pop culture brain. As soon as it came out in theaters, New Line could smell something even bigger. After just 1 year, they started a cartoon mask show every Saturday morning. Wild powers, green face, yellow suit. Calm down but still crazy. Then there were toy soldiers, board games, Halloween masks, and school supplies. Once dancing on the edge of AR rating, this movie now sells lunchboxes to 7-year-olds because The Mask doesn't have to make sense. It only had to move quickly, wildly, and stretchy enough to hypnotize 8 was the dream age for fans. 21. It was every fan's dream come true. Nintendo Power held a contest across the country in 1995. The grand prize was a role in The Mask. There were ads in every copy. A lot of entries came in. The kids wrote letters. One lucky winner would get to work with Jim Carrey in the follow-up to one of the biggest hits of the decade. There was just one catch. Jim Carrey had no plans to make a follow-up. Carrey had already left by the time the contest was over because he didn't want to play a part he thought he had already learned. It got quiet in the room. The movie was gone. The winner got a t-shirt, but no set visit or cameo. All he got was a written apology and a story that fans still talk about today. When Son of the Mask finally came out after 10 years, it didn't have any Carrey, charm, or highlight. After the contest, the phone went dead and the promise was broken. It had been a wild ride that started with a golden ticket. The kind of Hollywood event where the dream came true, but the follow-up never did. As a bonus, there is the green face, the zoot suit, and the yelling mantras. When seen on screen, The Mask looked like a mess. Under all that cartoon chaos, though, it almost won an Oscar. The Academy took notice in 1995 and put it up for Best Visual Effects, which was a good move. ILM had turned Jim Carrey's bendy performance into live animation, prosthetics, digital tricks, and hand-drawn craziness. It broke new ground. However, the figure was given to Forrest Gump not because it sparkled brighter, but because it sparkled more subtly. The Mask showed a dog's face, but Gump showed a feather flying on top of his head. It got even more ironic from there. For his role, Jim Carrey got praise at the Golden Globes and was nominated for the RZZY for Worst New Star. They both said it was terrible, even though the character played the same part. That may be all there is to say about The Mask, that it's not allowed by the rules. It was too bold to be overlooked. Always stuck between critical chaos and cultural success. It began as a scary comic, then turned into a cartoon, and finally became the movie that made Jim Carrey famous. The Mask wasn't meant to work. Too weird, too loud, and too hard to guess. That's what kept it going. It made us remember that comedy can be brave, chaos can be cute, and that the biggest risks don't always have the biggest rewards. Ready the drums? Spin the hat. Turn up the Cuban Pete? Great, because The Mask wasn't just chaos in a zoot suit. It became a story from the 90s. Tell us what you thought if this made you laugh. Let us know what crazy, over-the-top movie we should reveal next. The chaos is just beginning.